Right, good morning to you both. And today we are on 1 Samuel 22, Adullam's Cave. So I think we will do the first bit first and then the second bit. So the first bit's only 5 verses. Verse 1 to 5. And then we will go on and do the rest. So I don't know if either of you, or we've got Jenny as well, if anyone would like to pray or read. I'm happy to do either. But I'm guessing if some of us are in public areas, it might be easier for some of the rest of us to take that up. So I don't know, Steve, would you like to pray or read?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I'd just like to, what chapter, sorry?
22.
Right, yeah, 20. Okay, thanks. Yeah, I can pray or read, I don't mind.
Okay, do you want to read this morning? I'll pray. How about that?
That's fine.
Yeah, just 5 verses. So nice easy read. Lord, I just thank you for today. I thank you for your presence. I thank you for your power. I thank you for the way that you're with us through thick and thin. And Lord, as we look at the life of David, I just pray you come cause it to come alive to us. Come and let us understand things we've never understood before. Come speak to us through it. Come stir us. Come help us build our lives on you more and more. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Okay, verse 1. David departed from there and escaped to the cave of Adullam. And when his brothers and all his father's house heard of it, they went down there to him. And everyone who was in distress, and everyone who was in debt, and everyone who was better in soul gathered him. And he became captain over them. And there were about 400 men. And David went from there to Mizpeh of Moab. And he said to the king of Moab, "Please let my father and my mother stay with you till I know what God will do for me." And he left them with the king of Moab, and there stayed with them all the time that David was in the stronghold. And the prophet Gad said to David, "Do not remain in the stronghold, depart and go into the land of Judah." So David departed and went into the forest of Hereth.
Thank you, Steve. So we've got the next part of this. Saul is still hunting David, and so David has gone on a journey. He ended up, last time we were looking at it, with the Philistines. He had to act mad to get away, and he's ended up here in the cave of Adullam, and it seems to be a place where people gather, a bit of a stronghold, a bit of a fortress, kind of probably a hard place to get to. And the ESV notes here say that Adullam is halfway between Gath and Bethlehem. And because David's family are under threat, so because David's a danger to Saul and Saul's hunting him down, it means that David's family is in danger from Saul as well. So they all flee as well. So the whole family, despite having to pay no taxes, are having to leg it for the hills, literally. And so because his family's in danger, this is difficult, but living in the wilderness is going to be a rough life. So David tries to find a better deal for his parents, and he takes him to Moab, where Jesse's grandmother Ruth had come from. So there's a linkage, racial linkage, family linkage back to Moab, where we looked at the story of Ruth and we understood a lot about that, and there's a linkage in David's heritage back there. So that's some of the linkage that's gone there, and they reckon it was a difficult journey. They had to do 3,000 feet down to the Red Sea, followed by a similar ascent to the plateau of Moab. So these elderly parents of David's had to do this massive steep descent and ascent to get there. So it was probably a tough journey, but it wasn't too far. But it was the landscape made it difficult. So this is where we've got the story, and all the discontented people began coming to David, and you find him gathering a whole load of people who were discontented with Saul's reign, or who had got into trouble, or who had done wrong, and a whole mixed bag of people he gathered. And in ESV says, all those who are bitter in soul or discontented. And so we find that that's going on, but we also find there's prophetic input yet again to David's life. We find David the whole way through is inquiring of the Lord. He's also, there's a strong prophetic linkage with David. I think a lot of the prophetic people knew David was on the up. A lot of other people did too. Even the Philistines knew that. So there's no real secrets around that. It looked obvious to people. But there's some interesting points. So I think I'll open it up there and just see if there's anyone who wants to dive in on it. I've tried to do a little bit of a background so that set the base up for someone. Go for it, Steve.
I'm muted, and just in case, I'll put the flag up. Yeah, I'm in this, only 5 verses here, so, but yeah, I would like to just say, before I even consider the synonym of today, and any listeners to this channel will know, yeah, you can look on thesaurus.com. It's fatalistic is the word, and it's a synonym of pessimistic. And yeah, I'm not engineering this. I was like, well, I hope this hope this is an optimistic chapter. But we find that see, David's in a cave, and the cave would be a good place to hide. But also, I'm thinking of a dream my neighbour had, and as a child, I had this dream, and I woke up in distress, and this cave actually was a place of dead men's bones. And as a child, asked his mother and father. Anyway, you get the scene, and there's they didn't even answer truthfully, as I was concerned. Anyway, he's in a cave. Okay, see what happens, because David's in a cave and he's this victorious warrior. However, he's now in a cave. See, I've used this. I'm talking personally here. I've used this phrase in an email, and this was, don't get me wrong, my child at school, I used this phrase to say, yeah, he's in this cave metaphorically, and he needs to come out of the cave. And I said the reasons. And it wasn't blaming the school, it was just obviously things that were going on around the school. So anyway, yeah, you can't stay in a cave for your whole life, being the point. Yeah, there's no, otherwise what you just become a hermit. Now anyway, moving on to verse 2, and everyone, I mean, this is fascinating stuff. Everyone who is in distress, well, yeah, so it's done, and everyone who is in debt, and everyone who is bitter in soul. So we've got a 3-part. I don't know if they checked it at the door of the cave. I don't think they were literally in the cave. That would be a big cave to have 400 people in. It would be a cavern. But this is synonymous with a cave which will never release you. for all the people that are indebted and had their debts paid eternally. They're bitter in the soul, and they're in distress eternally, tormented day and night. That's what the book says about those. Now, I'm not saying we need to, but that's where living in a cave will. It's not freedom living in a cave, is it? So yeah, if anything's not clear, if I'm muddying any waters, see, yeah, everyone that was in distress. Well, isn't somebody that's there in distress? It's distress, and not just a catch-all, bitter in soul. That's somebody's in distress. I don't know. I probably need to look at some other versions, or anyway. I won't say, but I've been pretty candid about this situation. So I'll put my hand down and here's.
Thanks, Steve. I sort of think in this, it's just it's interesting how people didn't gather to David. We don't have any evidence of people gathering to David until he's in the safe stronghold of this cave. And the stronghold of the cave, I've just looked up online. I can't really show it on this easily, but I've looked up Adullam's cave. It doesn't look that big, but I guess it could sleep 400, possibly, very tightly. and as a result, that would be the suspected cave that they think is Adullam's cave. And I think in terms of that, it becomes an inaccessible area, or an area that's easy to defend from attack. So if Saul had come for him, it was a place that David could defend from. It's a place he could be secure and hard to attack from all sides. So there are some advantages to this stronghold, and people are gathered to it, and he gathers about 400 men. It's interesting, it's not the most hospitable environment, and so therefore he takes his parents away and makes sure they're safe, which is a very honourable approach. You see David doing the right thing so often in these passages, and in looking after that, he ends up with a whole load of these guys who are really looking for something. Looking for direction, looking for vision, looking for purpose, looking for all those things, and also fairly naffed off with life in general, and where you've got family kind of base, especially in countries where you've got an extended family, or some of the strengths of extended family. If you're a person on your own, you can be easily taken out. Let's imagine sort of like Jacob back in the day with his 12 sons and all their families, right? You mess with Jacob, you're messing with a whole clan, you're messing with a huge number of people. So in some ways there's a protection. There's also security for old age by having a big family and all those things. But if you get isolated from your family, if you have to do a runner, if you have to be away from what makes you secure in that safe family environment, then you're very much on your own and you're easy pickings for people. So some of these guys heading for the cave, where they were, feeling there was a gathering point. This coming together was something I think was partly a kind of family of David's. They came and, hey David, we want to be in your family. Can we be adopted by you? Can you take us under your wing? There's a bit of that going on. I like Steve's thing about the entry point to the cave. Are you disenfranchised? Are you in debt? Are you this? Okay, you can come in. And you see this, and he's hiding there. But this kind of stronghold was probably a place they slept at night. Where would be safe at night if you go to sleep? Having somewhere nice and safe was good, and so in that way it was comfortable. And especially if you're on a war footing with half the country hunting for you. So I can see the point of that. What I find interesting is the prophetic call to leave the cave, and Steve's comment about being a hermit. David the hermit would have been what we knew of, but he had to venture out of the place of safety. He had to venture into more risky territory, but not totally risky. So David was from the tribe of Judah. I would suggest that family loyalty was stronger than governmental loyalty, judging that Saul was the first king. So it was rare for someone to stick up for government above family. And so being in Judah, David did have some protection of people. And this prophet advises him to go to Judah and to live in around there. And so he went and lived in a forest. And I suppose the closest English equivalent of this is Robin Hood, and living in Sherwood Forest on the run. And so we've got some of this with David and his men living in the forest, another inaccessible place, but a place you can get in and out of a bit easier than a cave. And so I think on those grounds is something. But I think for us spiritually, sometimes the place of safety, the place of the gathering points of some of these needy places and protective places and safe spaces is important. But there comes a time where we need to move out from that and venture into life. But it's not like going into somewhere insecure. It's going into another secure point. But one that you can get in and out of a bit easier than the cave, and I think that's a really interesting point. But these men, obviously, it was no secret that David was at this fortress of protected by the geography, protected by the cave, protected by these things. So that's why people came to him, because they knew he was there. If they didn't know he was there, they wouldn't be gathering to him. So there's some of these things here where there's a lot more leakiness into the community than we realize. It's not like David's secret layer. It's David's there, and for Saul to have got him would have been a huge military thing to get in there. So he's playing the geography to his advantage and safety. And I think in some ways, rebuilding lives, putting lives together. This is what we find David doing with these guys, and I think that's really important. Steve, and then welcome Jenny.
Oh, I'm muting myself. Some other applications of a cave. I thought, as you were talking, about another one, which us people not far from London know well of. The Blitz. See, you could, about 400. It was the thing, about 400 people sleeping in a cave, and I'm sure, that they didn't think, oh, this is a perfect place. Holborn tube station, or what other tube you could think of. Yeah, but they probably did sleep 400 down there on the platform, because there's bombs coming. It's from safety. There was another thing that you raised, or within me. I can't remember the exact question, but I proposed an answer that is a catch-all. Well, there's two things you can do going to a cave, and it could be you want to become dead men's bones and just die as a hermit in there. But I don't think that's natural, and here's the answer: unless your person seemingly has lost all hope. So I propose the answer to the question, and the catch-all for the qualification is those people felt they were losing hope, but they still had some hope. They weren't totally pessimistic. They were like, yeah, we're in debt, we suffered hardship, but yeah, let's go down there. Yeah, we remember David. He triumphed over his enemies. He can triumph over Saul. Who knows what they were thinking? This is all reading between the lines. But I'm glad Job's wife, she lived in a different era, but she was the person that seemed to cancel any hope. Yeah, curse God and die, she said to him.
Mm-hmm.
And she was, not a person looking for any hope for Job. Anyway.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. And did you want to come in on this, Jenny, before we move on to the next bit? Is there anything you've had any thoughts you had on Adullam's cave?
Well, probably nothing to do with this really, but I think if you're in a cave, you can stay, you can be in a safe place, a secure place, and but be afraid to go out, can't you? And I remember somebody once I was praying for, they had a picture of a cave. I had a picture of a cave, and Jesus was calling them out, and they wouldn't step out because they were frightened,
Yeah.
But I mean, they did in the end, so it was good. But
Yeah.
David wasn't afraid to go out. He was in a cave, but then he went out again, didn't he?
Yeah.
He always did what God told him to do. I think his heart was for he wasn't interested in his own safety. He was doing what God wanted him to do, and he cared about people, which was good.
Yeah.
But you can get stuck, I think, in a cave situation. Get stuck somewhere you can't. It's secure, but you're not going anywhere.
Yeah.
I think that's what it speaks to me. But the thing is, if you step out in faith, then God will be with you.
Yeah.
Wherever you are, He's with you anyway. So, yeah.
Yeah, and there's some. I think that's very important. A cave. You can be stuck in it, and I think that's very true. I think also you don't see visibly around you when you're in a cave. You might feel secure because you've got rocks at least 3 times, above you, below you, on all other sides, and you've got one entrance, so you can defend the entrance a little bit, so you can feel safe hiding in the rocks, but you're vulnerable because you don't know what's happening in the outside world. You can't see what's happening around, and so you're boxed in, and actually, if you needed to fight your way out, you'd have to fight your way out through one entrance or maybe a couple of entrances, but really you're not going to you can't see what's coming your way. In a forest, you can hear what's coming your way from many different directions. There are different ways of operating. It's a very different secure point. And also it's amongst people because it's in the tribe of Judah. And actually that in itself connects David with the heart of his people. And I think that's very interesting. So the advice of the prophet was good advice, but stopped David from that becoming a caveman. And I think that's important. So let's move on from there, and let's go verse 6 onwards. Here we hear some horrific actions of Saul, and also so we've had Saul look at he didn't mind doing a sacrifice rather than wait for Samuel. He didn't mind not obeying the word of God in other occasions because it suited his purposes differently. He had all those kind of kind of worldly wiseness, but not really with an honouring of God. Whereas David seems very, very different to that, and we see this growing contrast between the two. And here in this bit we see some of the horrific things of how far Saul's hatred has grown in him, of how awful he's become, and we're going to hit some more of that. So I don't know if anyone would like to read, or I'm happy to read from 6 to the end of the chapter.
Have we done this last bit here?
We've done 1 to 5, 1 Samuel 22, 1 to 5, and now we'll do the 6 to the end of the chapter. if that's okay. So I'll read it. We'll go for it. Now Saul heard that David was discovered, and the men who were with him. Saul was sitting at Gibeah under the tamarisk tree, on the height, with his spear in his hand, and all his servants standing around him. And Saul said to his servants who stood around him, "Hear now, men of Benjamin, will the son of Jesse give every one of you fields and vineyards? Will he make you commander of thousands and commander of hundreds, that all of you who have conspired against me? No one discloses to me when my son makes a discloses to me when my son makes a covenant with the son of Jesse. None of you is sorry for me, or discloses to me that my son has stirred up my servant against me, to lie in wait as at this day." Then answered Doeg the Edomite, who stood with the servants of Saul, "I saw the son of Jesse coming to Nob, to Ahimelech, Ahimelech, the son of Ahitub, and he inquired of the Lord for him, and gave him provisions, and gave him the sword of Goliath the Philistine." Then the king sent a summon to Ahimelech, the priest, the son of Ahitub, and all his father's house, and the priests who were at Nob, and all of them came to the king. And Saul said, "Hear now, son of Ahitub." He answered, "I am here, my lord." And Saul said to him, "Why have you conspired against me, you and the son of Jesse, in that you have given him bread and a sword, and have inquired of the Lord for him, so he has risen against me to lie in wait as to this day?" And Ahimelech answered the king, Who is among all your servants is so faithful as David, who is the king's son-in-law, and captain over your bodyguard, and honoured in your house? Is today the first time I've inquired of the Lord for him? No. Let not the king impute anything to his servant, or to all the house of my father, for your servant has known nothing of all of this, much or little. And the king said, "You shall surely die, Ahimelech, and all your father's house." And the king said, to the guard who stood around him, "Turn and kill the priests of the Lord, because their hand is also with David." And they knew he had fled, and did not disclose it to me. But the servants of the king would not put out their hand to strike the priests of the Lord. Then the king said to Doeg, "You turn and strike the priests." And Doeg the Edomite turned and struck the priests, and he killed on that day 85 people who wore the linen ephod. And Nob, the city of priests, he put to the sword, both men and women, child and infant, ox, donkey, and sheep he put to the sword. But one of the sons of Ahimelech, the son of Ahitub, named Abiathar, escaped and fled after David. And Abiathar told David that Saul had killed the priests of the Lord. And David said to Abiathar, "I knew on this day, when Doeg the Edomite was there, that he would surely tell Saul, I have occasioned the death of all the persons of your father's house. Stay with me, do not be afraid, for he who seeks my life seeks your life. With me you shall be in safekeeping." And that's pretty horrific. Mm-hmm. And this is what happens. The polarization of things takes place. David is not against Saul. Actually, God is against him being king. And actually he's fighting against God and taking out any opposition he can on the way through. And he can't see the stupidity of that. He can't see how daft that is. And he's fighting that corner. And so he has decided that the enemy of enemies is not the Philistines, it's David. Because he threatens his lineage and his heritage. And so he's trying to kill off David. And anyone that helps David is now a target. So it was just David's a target. And he threw a spear at him occasionally when he was fighting demonic thoughts and everything else. He threw a spear at him a couple of times. David escaped. Then he tries to kill him in other ways. And then David's escaping. And then gradually it's getting bigger and bigger. It got to the point where Saul wasn't just trying to kill him himself. He was involving his soldiers to try and do it. He was involving others to try and do it. He was trying to involve his son. His son was on David's side. That didn't work out. Every point he turns to, he's frustrated. But now it's got to a war footing. So in war, things become very polarized. And this is the danger, is actually it's not the reality of things. It's what war makes things, in a way, when things move on to a war footing. It's like in the Second World War, I imagine, and from what I've read, nothing German was good, in Britain. Because anything linked to Germany or anything with it, it's like people were nervous of, and they didn't want to die, and they was on a war footing. Likewise, in other countries, Britain may have seemed like that. And actually, if you look at the Ukraine-Russian side of things, if you mention Russia or Russians, everyone's like, oh, they're the baddies or whatever. And our media is playing this out. But actually, you've got a lot of lovely people all caught up in the middle of that on both sides of things. And actually in this, Saul is pushing things onto a war footing. So anyone that helps David is now in danger. They have become, in Saul's view, a legitimate target. He's going to go for them. And the problem is, his own soldiers won't deliver that. They've got a conscience. They're not like soldiers of the past. I was only obeying orders. No, these guys are going, no, that's wrong. I won't do it. And actually they're disobeying him by saying, no, we won't kill priests. We're not. You're fighting God. We're not going to get involved in that. We're staying out of this. We're not going to be involved. And this guy with no conscience, the head of his shepherding, Saul's shepherd, special shepherd, head shepherd of all his sheep. He's willing to go to all lengths for Saul. He's willing to kill priests. He's willing to go to war, join Saul's war against God. He's willing to do all those things and do them to excess. He didn't just kill the priests in front of him. He went and totally carried out a massive vengeance on the city where all the priests were, killing man, woman, child, donkey, ox, everything. In actual fact, he was so severe, he delivered what Saul should have delivered in battle against people and had been told to, and then he thought, oh no, the sheep are a bit nice, we'll keep those, we'll keep a few of the cattle, we'll keep some of the best of things, that was what Saul did. But in this, when it comes to against the priests, well, annihilate as much as possible. And you've got this guy running to the safety of David, telling David what's happened. And David's saying, I'm sorry, it's my fault. I shouldn't have gone for bread. It shouldn't have gone for the sword. Shouldn't have inquired in it. I've put your family in danger. Look, come stay with me and I'll keep you safe. That's a lovely thing to say to someone in grief. It's a lovely thing to say to someone who's fleeing and has lost everything. I think there's some very good points in the story. So that's my little sort of trawl through the passage. I'll let you guys go for it. Any thoughts you've got?
Obviously, he had no. Sorry.
Yeah, go for it. Yeah.
Saul had no fear of God, did he at all? He just because you wouldn't know, to actually kill the priests who represented God to him, really. It just shows you how demonic it was, really. He was completely deceived, and it just went berserk, really, didn't he? It
Yeah.
was just that mind. Um, I should think it's David taking on the responsibility of saying that's my fault.
Yeah.
His heart, doesn't it? Because you know, and then he cared for the people. It was so lovely. Um, you've said it all, really, Nigel.
Sorry. Yeah. I don't know if I've said it all though. I stayed away from a few points, but I think that, yeah, I think that kind of care at the end there is really something. But the killing the priests, that's huge. And that's a real statement. Saul's gone beyond. He's not reasonable.
No.
There's no reasoning in it. It's become a full-on fist fight to the death. Do you know what I mean? That's where he's going. And actually, only that will end it, really. Steve?
Yeah, I've just looked up this guy. Immediately, we read the rest of this passage, and I was like, yeah, I'm trying to remember the plot. Well, look at this guy, Durag, or whatever his name is, the Edomite. I mean, there's danger. What tribe's he from? He's from the tribe of Edom. Yeah.
So tell us about that, Steve.
Well, it comes. Which one is it? It's it's two brothers. It's one's.
Yeah.
It's
Jacob and Esau.
Yeah, I knew it was there, but yeah. Esau, I've talked at length about him. Every verse, I've not only I've talked at length, I've studied Jacob and Esau on this very channel. I've shown what I learned about that. In fact, I had a discussion with Nigel about, but he was blessed. No, I read this, but it wasn't one verse, a chapter, and it was like, no, actually, he was cursed.
Yeah.
Yeah. There was no blessing in that. So apologies, Nigel, for and maybe that's maybe debatable matters, but I don't. Anyway.
Yeah.
Moving on from that. Esau was cursed.
Yeah.
And his generations. I'm sorry, it's. And Paul sums it all up. So anyway, the Edomite, there's danger. What's Saul hanging around with this? What's the Israelites hanging around with Edomites? Any Moabites? Anyone? Surely shouldn't they be not entertaining them? It's another clue here. I looked up his name, what it means in Hebrew, and it comes from the word anxious, and it's fearing. Who's he fearing? Is he fearing the God of Israel, Isaac, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, or is he fearing his own gods?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, who's he worshipping? This character, I'll just move on. Well, I may be a bit of time because there's a whole psalm written about him. I found his name in Psalm 52. It's only, I think, 7 verses from memory. We should read, it's 9. We should read about to the choir master of a Max Seal of David when Doeg, the Edomite, came to Saul and said, David's come to the house of Ahimelech.
Yeah.
So I think you should read those 9 verses pretty
Wh-
quickly.
Which one is it? Sorry, tell me the psalm number.
Psalm 52. So,
52. Right. There we go.
yeah. The Edomite. I won't even give him
Yeah.
his name. He's in fear and he's anxious.
Right.
And
Yeah.
we should read that one.
Shall I go for it? Yeah.
You have the Ahimelech and all those problems.
Right. Why do you boast, O mighty man? The steadfast love of the Lord endures all day. Your tongue plots destruction. Like a sharp razor, you worker of deceit. You love evil more than good, and lying more than speaking what's right. You love all words that devour, O deceitful tongue. But God will break you down forever. He will snatch and tear you from your tent. He will uproot you from the land of the living. The righteous shall see and fear, and shall laugh at him, saying, See the man who would not make God his refuge, but trusted in the abundance of his riches, and sought refuge in his own destruction. But I am like a green olive tree in the house of the Lord. I trust in the steadfast love of God forever and ever. I will thank you forever, because you have done it. I will wait for your name, for it is good in the presence of the godly. And that's what David wrote. Yeah. So thanks for that, Steve. I'd say have you got more to say, Steve, or you're done?
Well, yeah, I won't bother with the hotel. I was demanding. Look, it's 7. We see all the evil and the it's just evil. And then 7, what a great number, a great verse. See the man who would not make God his refuge, but trusted in the abundance of the rich and sought refuge in his own destruction. Then we go over to the other side. But I am. See, this is Jesus. This is David, but it's Jesus. I am the green olive tree in the house of God. I trust in the steadfastness of God forever and ever. It's the eternal hope in verses 8 and 9. You got 7, draw a line. That's it. No more. Here we go. This is all praise. This is all hope. This is all love. This is all triumphing, overcoming. I will thank you forever because you have done it. Well, it's amazing insight from somebody in the cave. He's done it. He realizes God has already done it. How much he realizes that it's from his. Who knows? You can ask David when you meet him. I thank you forever. I will wait. See the clues here. I will wait for your name, for it is good. See, it's a waiting time. You got to wait in the cave for a while. There's a bomb stop. Okay, let's go out. You're in there.
Yeah. Thanks, Steve. So what we're gathering from what Steve brought and other things, I think it's creating quite a picture here. My view on Jacob and Esau is the blessing that should have been Esau's was given to Jacob. Yeah. All that was left to bless was a curse in comparison with the blessing. So we can agree on that, I think. But actually, let's remember what Esau did. He traded his birthright for a bowl of red stew. And here is his descendant going for the here and now of riches and the favor of Saul and damning what's godly. And actually in that is perpetuating something that was in his ancestor. And there's something very clear in that. And the psalm that David's written, which, thanks for bringing it up, Steve, it's wonderful. But the psalm here is actually really showing some of that. The man who would not make God his refuge, and the comparison. And this is what David's showing, is a comparison between someone like that, full of evil, willing to do anything for their own gain, willing to do anything for anything, and then living God's way, waiting for him, walking his way. There's two different paths. one full of blessing and one that is absolute destruction. And I think that's what's being shown here quite clearly. Jenny, you're about to say something, I think.
No, I was before, but you said it now. So
No,
I
I
was
probably didn't say it as well as you could. Go for it.
no, you said it much better than I did. No, I was thinking the same thing about Esau and Jacob, because in a way, you know, he was jealous, wasn't he? And I think it's the same spirit that Saul had, because he was jealous of David.
Yeah.
So just for a bowl of stew, because he wanted a bowl of stew because he was hungry. We can want something, and taking it by force is bad, or burnt choice, and losing what has for you. And I think jealousy can easily turn to bitterness, can't it?
Yeah.
And you have to be so careful and always keep a good account with God, really, and
Yeah. Yeah.
and try and see things from God's point of view.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah.
I say how I was going to say it, but I can't remember what it was now.
Sorry, Jenny.
No, not your fault. You didn't see my hand, you see, so.
Because I've got to change from Bible passage to the Zoom screen, so sorry about that.
Okay.
But with this is something Saul's doing at the beginning of the second bit we read, and he's trying to get his guy. If you view Saul in some ways like the archetype, kind of like CEO of a company, right? Board of directors meeting, right? It seems that all of you haven't told me Jonathan is in cahoots with David. Why haven't you done that? If you're loyal people around this table, why haven't you done that? Is he going to make you wealthy? I'm going to make you wealthy. You're wealthy now because of me, right? Actually, is he going to do that for you? Is he going to give you positions? He's of a different tribe. He's never going to do that for you. What about you, Uncle General? Would you be in your position if it wasn't for me? He's putting it round the table. Come on, boardroom chat. Come on, snaps up. Let's get this going. And actually, he's doing that chat around the table, and his head shepherd goes, well, actually, let's move the focus on somewhere else. And the words he uses don't describe what actually happened. The words he's using actually kind of like say they paint the priests in the bad light to start with. He doesn't say, David came and he asked for bread and said that he was on a mission for Saul. Doesn't mention that. Doesn't mention any of those things, even though he was there. He decides to mention the things that make them look bad. It reminds me of growing up as a kid when your brother runs to mom or dad and then tells them whatever it was and forgets to put in a few bits and pieces to make you look a little bit bad. Do you know what I mean? And you've got some of that going on, and we used to do this, kids do that to each other, They said this to me. Well, what did you say to them? Oh, yeah, well, actually, I wasn't very nice to them, in this, there's two sides to the story. One person seems right till another one speaks. And actually, this guy has presented them in a bad light. But the priests themselves, this is the honourable thing. They answer straight, we know nothing about David's plot against you. He comes to us all the time and asks of God. In fact, we know him better than we know you, because you don't come very often. There's a report, but they stick by David. And actually, that's bold things to do in front of a violent king. And they are bold with their words. Actually, it's showing those priests in a really good light. They just give it to him straight. We don't know anything small or big about David's plan. If he had a plan like that. But we don't think, he comes to us and asks, what does God want on everything all the time? And so their bold words to Saul are not self-protectionist. They are God protectionist. They are honourable. They are straight down the line. And Saul kills him for it. That demonic spirit goes for it. And actually, you know, we can blame the demonic in Saul, but actually he had enough willingness in himself for this. It wasn't a forced on situation that he was wrestling. It was something that was in his heart already. And we've discussed this. But actually, you know, these priests, amazing guys. And that's how it comes across to me. And the guy runs to David and says, look, this is what's happened. David says, I'll take you in and keep you safe. There's a beautiful linkage between the priests of God and David's heart and their heart. It's very interesting. Steve?
Yeah. Thank you. It's going to get more positive, but this is a warning.
Brace yourselves.
Yeah. Funny you use that phrase. The Lord Jesus, I was thinking about that driving home from dropping my child off at school. And the Lord used that phrase, brace yourself like a man. So, yeah, it's funny because I was just thinking. Anyway, the phrase, I was like, blimey, use that again. You should surely die. So I'm going to be using the ESV. Where did you get that phrase? He probably knows that phrase, I guess, if he knows the first 5 books of the Bible.
Yeah.
Genesis 2:17. But of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat, for that day that you eat of it, you shall surely die. The Lord reiterates what he says in Genesis 20:7. Now then, return to the man's wife, for he is a prophet, so he will pray for you, and you shall live. But if you not do return her, know that you shall surely die. You and all who are yours. Anyway, moving on. It's a personal situation, but actually, that's all, and you and all who are yours, your generations. 1 Samuel 14:44. Saul used it. It's hard to read these verses. Saul said, God, do to me more so. Do to me and more also. You shall surely die, Jonathan. I mean, it's hard to comprehend. You know. Anyway, and then we got it 1 Samuel 22:16. Enough of that. You get the picture.
Yeah.
Something better to be said than to. We should talk about the end of this thing, really. So, if you're looking for hope, we got to look for hope.
Mm-hmm.
Hopefully, they went to the cave, escaped the bombs, or the fear of the bombs, and of the war that's raging. But well, if you take from 20 that one escapes, well, that's a good thing. 22, David said to, let's try to get these words right, Abiathar, I knew that day when that Edomite was there, that he was surely tell Saul, and I have occasioned the death of all the person of your father's house. It's like he was forewarned, or he had foreknowledge. In 22, David has foreknowledge that guy's trouble, and what he would do. Okay, and then but 23, this is a great way to finish when it's getting. I hurried myself up. Stay with me. Do not be afraid, for he who seeks my life will seek your life. With me, you shall be in safekeeping. I mean, if that's not a Jesus statement, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, David is the type of Jesus. Yeah, 3 warns. Yeah, life of a Christian. Yeah, you have to you be in the cave, feel like you're. Yeah. There is one who seeks to take your life. He's modus operandi, as the police would say. MO is kill, steal, and destroy. When you see that, oh, you're on sort of the trail of the perpetrator. So yeah, but with me you shall be in safekeeping. See, stay with me. See, rest. To stay with somebody, stay with Jesus means to rest. Yeah, all those Edomites. Yeah, Hebrews tells us they are not going to the place of rest. All those Israelites that say, no, we're going with the Edomites, they go to the place where there's no rest. Yeah. Did I say that right? The first statement. Basically, those who reject the Lord's take refuge and safekeeping and stay with me, do not be afraid. Fear. See, it's Doug, the Edomite. Yeah, he's the guy that's fear and anxious. That's what his name means. And David, the Jesus type, or the type of Jesus, says, "Stay with me. Do not be afraid." And he's with this wonderful Psalm 52. Anyway, enough of that. Enough of my thoughts.
Thanks, Steve. So we finish up this passage because I've heard the birds tweeting, which tells us it's after 10 o'clock. We've had some comments online from Ricky and also from Mike Rock. One of Mike Rock's comments is, "It's cold in a cave," and Ricky mentions the tongue, which we didn't touch on as much, and actually that's really, it's the power of the tongue. And if you think about James and the power of the tongue and how it can set fire to a whole forest, Doug with his words sets fire to a whole town of priests, and they like put to the torch, it's boom. And so I think there's some very good points there. So thank you to you guys joining us online, and thanks to the rest of you here, and I'll move us offline now. But thanks for all the comments. I think we've really got some good things out of that passage, so thanks for that.